Hey everybody, I'm Austin Ludwig and I'm here at the CCM Cafe. Kind of a crazy life story, just hitting the bullet points. I grew up moving around a lot, in and out of different church scenes. My parents, they were in ministry growing up, and so I always grew up in the church and had a number of siblings. But times got really difficult. Around the age of 4, my parents got divorced and went through just about a decade of what was a really difficult season. Dad got into drugs and different substances, and the crazy time was all throughout this next decade. Into my teenage years, I was still in and out of church. My parents were ministering while there was crazy stuff going on, while we had court cases and caseworkers with DFACs, and just it was a hurricane of just craziness. And around the age of 14, things kind of escalated. Father went to prison, and my siblings and I went into foster care. And then throughout my high school, career, I was in a foster home through that entire time. But I ended up actually at a Wind-Shaped Home, which is founded by Truett Cathy with Chick-fil-A in Rome, Georgia. So there I really just had this healing process that started. I would say that's where I really began to discover who I was, and decided that I wanted to lean into ministry when I graduated high school, and then to also lean into music and songwriting. Just discovered that. And so I graduated out of the foster care system, ended up in the metro Atlanta area, and I've been making music. I've been in ministry, pastoring for the past, I've been on staff at a church for about 7 or 8 years. I've been a pastor for almost 5 years now, and releasing music, producing music in the Atlanta area. Through all the craziness, Jesus has completely, again and again, just redeemed my story. And when I look back at all the pain, the craziness, I could go into countless stories that would just blow your mind and be like, man, that's difficult to believe. But through the midst of that, when I look back, all I see is the fingerprint of God in every situation, and really that's what inspires my music. So now I'm writing songs about just what Jesus can do, and it's and He's completely changed my life, and I want to share that through music. Yeah, so New Creation was the first, my debut single, but it's actually, I've got a number of other singles out, and it's leading up to my debut album release, which the goal is to release it in May. We pushed the release date back a little bit, but we'll be releasing the album in May. So the album is, we completely produced it independently with my executive producer, also a good friend of mine. His name's Spencer Boyce. He and I produced the whole album together. And sonically, I would say that the album, it's got a lot of contemporary worship vibes, but then is fairly eclectic as well. I feel like maybe kind of tiptoeing into different avenues with, I would say, with Christian worship music. And so it's really just a mixed bag. It's a couple of fairly corporate worship type songs, and then songs that are very much from left field, that are more eclectic sounding. But yeah, we started the process of funding the album, everything we did. It was difficult because I was just another young worship leader, who shows up on people's social media feed and was like, I'm going to raise money to make songs, and it's we've seen that so many times. And so, but we wanted to do it differently. So a part of the story that a lot of people don't know is that we actually decided that we wanted to not just make another worship album, but we wanted to do something that would give back. And so what we did is we set a goal to raise a certain amount of money so that we could not only create the album, but we could also give an album away where there was a need for it. And so what we ended up doing when we started fundraising for this album, we got connected with some missionaries in China, and decided that we were going to partner with them to produce a 5-song record in the language of Mandarin. And so we raised the money, got connected with them, flew out to Hong Kong, out to China, and took a bunch of gear with us, and we produced a bunch of songs in Mandarin. It's the most spoken language in the world. A lot of people don't know that, but there's estimated to be in mainland China speaking Mandarin, 100 million plus Christians in the underground church. And so basically we got funded, started that process, finished that record, and that was kind of like what paralleled. It was kind of like the Tom Shoes model. You buy shoes, they give away shoes. And so we kind of approached it like that. So that was actually kind of the foundation of this whole journey. It's been like a 2-year process. So just kind of give a backstory. Really, most of our time we spent in Hong Kong, which is, if people know the story of Hong Kong, it's kind of its own independent, government, at least for the next, 45 to 50 years. But basically, we're partnered with missionaries who've been out there their entire life, and they have planted churches in mainland China. They've planted a church in Hong Kong, in the city, and the craziness of it all. And so really what we did is we produced most of the album just in a little village area that was in Hong Kong, right on the mainland China border. And so we got a bunch of people who spoke Mandarin in a room together who are part of the church, and recorded all the gang vocals and everything there, did all that, and then did a lot of post-production on it when we came back. But basically, what we discovered is there's a massive need, not just for Bibles and resources, but we can YouTube Chris Tomlin or whoever when we want to listen to worship music on the internet, but people in China can't do that. So what we've done is we've gotten these songs. We did songs like "Build My Life," "God You're So Good," Good Father. We did these songs in Mandarin and distributed them to the churches in mainland China via like USB drives, all that kind of thing. And so we've continued to do that, got them up on Chinese streaming platforms, and just have heard bunches of testimonies, just like people being able to sing along to these songs in their own language is like a huge blessing, And so it was wild. It was like a culture shock being like on the other side of the world doing all this, My buddy Spencer and I were just like walking around, and people are like staring at you because we're just like two lanky, tall white guys like walking around China, but it was a beautiful experience. I would say my heart was touched, and I'm marked for life, and it's a goal of ours to continue to do this, to continue to make records for the people in China, and to continue to distribute them, especially because things right now are tightening more and more with the underground church in China, and so there seems to be a need for that more than ever. So we didn't get to go into like the mainland area and like join an underground church just because of kind of restrictions, and we were gonna try and go back, and then COVID happened, and it was crazy. But while we were there, there was a lot of things we had to tiptoe around, even just with like communicating with the missionaries who were there. I know that a lot of them have been people who started churches, have been booted out of mainland China. And technically Hong Kong will be grafted into the nation of China in less than 50 years because of this whole, treaty they had. And so it's kind of crazy because it's not only is it like there's a timeline window, but there's like this place that is like the funnel to getting the gospel into that unreached area. But yeah, I mean, it's getting more tense from what we hear from reports. It's more and more difficult to get visas to go into mainland China. It's more difficult to stay there and to, like you said, like to have a church. They give some options to register and do things, but you might as well not even have your own belief system, so it's nearly impossible. So yeah, it's very difficult. But as I guess sad as all that sounds, the gospel of Jesus is exploding right now, and we see that through history of the church, especially in the East. Just when there's immense pressure, you see it in the Middle East. It just seems that it creates this multiplication process where when there's persecution, the gospel is spread like never before. So I think they're seeing that right now as well. So lots of hope. My job at the church, it's evolved. It's been eclectic over the years. Now I'm the worship pastor, but I'm over worship production. I lead our 20s and 30s gathering, and then I also teach some now on Sundays as well. And so it's just kind of evolving. But one of my desires has always been at the church to produce and release music from the church body and the community, because I really feel that, in the fivefold ministry, there's the office of the prophetic, and the prophetic is really just, what is God speaking? What is that rhema word? What is he saying right now? And I really feel that if songwriters and worship leaders and the community of creatives are leaning in together and listening, that there's an opportunity to speak that fresh word that God is speaking over a body. That's why I love seeing that. So actually, even before I started, one of my goals before we started this whole doing a record in China, doing my personal record finally, to get these songs out that I've been sitting on, I felt like I was like, man, I really want to like put a stake in the ground and do something for the church. And so we actually released a single in 2019, and currently we're working on our debut album for the church as well, which probably the hope is to get it out before the end of the year as well. Once I drop my album, we'll start following singles. So they kind of coincide, but the goal with writing songs with the church is really to say these songs are for this community. This is for this body. Just like any community that's writing and releasing songs, they might apply to so many different people, but really I think they originated in like, hey, this is what we feel God is speaking to us, for us, where we've come from, where we're at, and where we're going. And so that's kind of the heart behind that. We built out a little studio space at the church, and Riverstone Church, it's in Kennesaw, which is like right outside the Atlanta area, outside the perimeter. It's been kind of a songwriting church for a while. I don't know if you know, but I worked under Daniel Bashta for 2 years. He wrote God's Not Dead, all that. So I worked with him, with his sister Harvest, and our network churches as well. In the Transformation Network. Riverstone's kind of the mother church of that network. And so there is this creative songwriting thing that's always been there. When I became worship pastor, I really wanted to see that grow. And it's been awesome because we're doing like writing retreats, inviting people in the community to do that. And the fruit from it has been amazing. And then just playing those songs on Sundays that like we feel like we're birthed from culturally what God's doing right now. It seems like the fruit has been like significant from that. So, we realize like all of our young community, or the musicians, production team, worship leaders, all of that was the main, like the main demographic of the millennial Gen Z world. So like when we decided to start writing these songs and doing these songs, we really felt from the Lord that we needed to actually do something beyond just music. So it's actually a gathering as well. We gather twice a month. We do like offsite gatherings, and it's just a community of people. So Riverstone Collective is also the gathering, but it's also the avenue where we release songs for the whole church as well under that name.